So, guys, I want to talk about AEW, and what I want to say is that, the Continental Classic is getting a lot of attention. They're primarily focusing on that. And the big thing that I'm a little worried about is that I'm not sure who's going to be in the Final Four or what matches we're going to get at World's End. And I think that their AEW is doing something really, really stupid. I think they're going to actually screw over Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. And I think that that's going to be very horrible. I think that the best match that they can do is they can have Kyle Fletcher versus Will Ospreay part 3, because the reason why you want to do that is that's the only thing in the Continental Classic that has a story. You know, it's like, Kyle Fletcher saying, you know what, finally I can get Will Ospreay and I can actually beat him for a title, because that's what matters to me. It's not just beating Will Ospreay, it is actually beating him for a title. You know, vicariously, it's almost like if I was in NJPW beating him for the NJPW championship, or I was in Britain beating for that championship. It's going to be a reign of Kyle Fletcher, really. And I think what AEW doesn't understand is, and I think what people are saying is that one of the big issues is that they want to put some twists and turns into things. And sometimes that's good, but sometimes that's bad. And I think that what they might do is they may say, okay, well, Darby Allin and Will Ospreay are going to become a team, and Will Ospreay is going to lead Team AEW, and he's going to be like, in charge of the conglomeration, all these other people. And I think that would be a really good role for him. But I just think that's a very, very poor usage. I just think that what gets Will Ospreay over is having a lot of really great matches. He is not a wrestler that gets over by leading a group, really. So I think that would be bad. And then the other thing, too, is that, quite honestly, if he's not in it and you put somebody else, like maybe Shelton Benjamin or a Daniel Garcia or another person, it's just not, there's no sense of conflict. There's no sense of, do I care about who wins, really? I think that, the thing that's going to save World's End is if you have 2 Will Ospreay matches. He has great matches. You do Will Ospreay versus Okada, Will Ospreay wins, and then you do Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher, he wins. You have Kyle Fletcher, you have Will Ospreay, you have Kyle Fletcher versus Shelton Benjamin, and you have Kyle Fletcher versus maybe Claudio or something like that. Like, I have not looked at the ranking systems, but Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher works. And then what would happen is that they both have one match. You start the show with like Will Ospreay versus Okada. You show what Okada can do, then you build him up as a single star. But yeah, Will Ospreay win, and then you have the next match where it's Kyle Fletcher, and then he wins. And then, the penultimate match of the night is going to be Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher. They talk about their history. They talk about what it means. And then the good thing about that is you're saying, okay, now we have a story with the Continental Championship. And what's one big thing that people say about AEW is that they don't emphasize storytelling. They really emphasize, just wrestlers getting in their own way, and the booker getting in their own way, and overthinking stories and short-term stories. But also the other thing too is emphasizing, way too many matches. So I think that that's the best story that they can tell with this. And I think that, as I said, the Will Ospreay thing is working, and you want him to feel special. So why not just give us 2 Will Ospreay matches? Because at least people will say, okay, that's going to be something that people are going to like. That's going to be something that people are going to look forward to. And that's going to make money for your pay-per-view. I think that if you do anything else, it's not going to work. And then if you do something where you have Will Ospreay, get hit by a pipe or whatever, and he can't do the Continental Classic and he's out of it, it's going to make a bunch of people pissed off. It's going to, as OTR Central famously said, Moxley faction is just like, the Aces and Eights and Dixie Carter and other things. There's 2 type of heel heats in professional wrestling. There's the heel heat that draws money, like Roman Reigns being a champion for 3 years. That's a heel that draws money. There's to get the fuck off my television heel heat, and that's what Moxley has. If the ratings are going down why would you put him in an angle where he hurts, one of your biggest draws? You know, why would you have something like the Aces and Eights, continue for such a long time? Why would you have the Death Riders continue? It's not working. So do not do something that's going to piss off people, So I just really, really hope that it goes down to Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay. It's going to be a really great match. It's also a good one because what's going to happen is that they have the New Year's show in Japan, really. So people will see, Will Ospreay versus Okada. That's something that you would see overseas, really. So they can say, hey, you know what? They can even show a trailer, a promo for the New Year's Dash show and tell people how to order it and say Kenny Omega and other people are going to be there. And then what you do after that really is say something like, hey, this is a match that usually happens over in Japan, see other great matches that are going to happen over there. So that works. And then you have Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher. You talk about their story, their history. Then it would say, hey, this is not just this is not something thrown together. This is actually a real story because in AEW they've been together, mostly this year. I think they've been together, since March or something like that. So so in a way you are supporting long-term storytelling, and then you're promising to your audience, hey, you know what, long-term storytelling with twists and turns and things that make sense and things that people like to see. That's what AEW needs to do. We don't do we know we'll give you something that's working. Now we're going to figure out other things that are working. Like maybe you do a match between Bobby Lashley and Swerve Strickland. It's like a rematch type of thing. And then you do one more match in Australia. And then it's almost like, okay, it's going to be a bloody match really. Or it's going to be like an I quit type of match or a 10 count or like a last man standing type of match. And then when that happens, Swerve loses, he has to join the Hurt Syndicate. And then you do that and you see how that goes really, So, this is the way to show. So with Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher being, in the finals of the Continental Classic, that is going to be AEW's, way of just saying, we can do long-term storytelling like Swerve and Lashley, or we can do long-term storytelling of what I'm trying to do with Chris Jericho and Dustin Rhodes, or we can do long-term storytelling of, of something of other things as well. Of Darby Allin, just being Sting's protege to actually become the AEW champion in the near future. This will just reinforce that the AEW does have long-term storytelling, and that's the direction they want to go in. So, for the love of God, I really just hope they don't screw the pooch on this one. So, Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher, that needs to be in the finals, or they're gonna totally fuck up their pay-per-view.